the house, and shut the door. Do not force. With that taken care of. The lock turned and slowly, and the sound is too quiet to be normal. I was standing in the middle of the room, not knowing where to put his hands, feeling the air getting heavier as the police station. The whole he had decided to listen to the conversation. He has not sat down. Don told me to sit down. You only stood there, staring at me in silence, and how much longer it would take to tell you. The more I came to understand that it was not forgotten. It was a choice. He took a step forward, and then another. He stopped close enough for me to smell the scent of coffee, a cold breath from him. And then he said, with a tone that is common to the other just to be safe, "Have you ever noticed that no one here has told the whole story?" My body reacted before my mind. I have tried to answer something, but he raised his hand with a simple gesture, education, and I shut up. He turned to the side, took out an envelope on the table and threw it over to her. The envelope is slid to a stop right in front of me. The inside, I had to my name, writing it by hand. I have felt your stomach sink. The house is watched on each micro-reaction to me, as if he was observing from the inside out. And then he said the phrase that changed everything. You didn't come by chance. I laughed nervously. He said that he was crazy. He didn't react. Only he bent his head and said, "Everyone says that, but to figure it out." The silence came back again. Only the clock on the wall checking the time I was missing out on. I asked her, his voice failing, "Understand what?" The sheriff took a deep breath, and he chose not to respond. He stepped away from the desk. He opened the door and said, without looking at me, "Go home. A conversation with Emily. Then tell me if you still think that this is just a video." Before leaving, he paused with his hand on the door handle and took a shot. How to play a light. Oh, and be careful with what you say, because some of the responses do not let us sleep. The door slammed shut. I was left all alone, and it was at that moment that I realized. The house is, I knew who it was. I knew who I was. He was just waiting for the right moment to let it come crashing down. Right now, I could have told you exactly what was in that envelope. I couldn't tell you why that's the last of it. Everything changes. And for that, Redwood Falls. It never has been alone in a small town. But if I have to do this now, you won't feel the weight. So, I'm going to take you back to a few hours before, when I thought that it was not an option. And before you continue, please make this for me if you subscribe to the channel right now, because this story wasn't made just to be seen by one half, and share this video with anyone who likes suspense and psychological truth, and one that squeezes your breast slowly. Breathe in, because it all started with something that is too simple to be a dangerous one. A surname, a street address, a record of the old one, and there was a silence that is used as a weapon. I have a channel. I live for stories. If I live to go back to the people to hide from you, they whisper as they say, "It's over." And I've seen it all. The ghost town, the hotel, dropped, hit. The disappearance of evil is explained, learned that it was not a cult. Those are the things that the internet loves, and that is, to be honest, I love it. But this time was different. I was in Denver when I got the following message. Do you want a real story that no one has the guts to tell you? Come to Redwood Falls. The question asked in the fire, on the old bridge. The fire from the bridge to the old town. I Googled it quickly. Nothing. In the case that some, as if someone had gone to a cloth over the top. And the less information, the more I know what's in there. I picked up my car, and I drove to Redwood Falls, with the feeling that I was going to make a good video, but it's not dangerous. And here's where I admit something to you. I thought it was my superpower. I thought that I could lead to things. I thought that I could get out before it gets worse. Only, Redwood Falls, it's not a place where you leave it when you want it. Redwood Falls is a place where, when you get the place, goes in you. I got to the end of the day. The sky's heavy. Rocky mountains on the horizon. Gas stations are spaced too far. And there was a silence that seemed to be agreed upon. When I stopped in the parking lot of the One's Diner, is a decent town, and I felt eyes following me. Not out of curiosity. Search. It is as if the people they were trying to make. That I'll go away you need. Or will you take the job? I asked for a coffee. The waiter asked me where I was from. I told him, and I saw the reaction on his face. It's minimal, but it's real. The type of micro-expression that it is thought of before the person hiding. I asked casually, "And the old bridge? What happened in there?" He placed the cup in front of me, and then he responded with 2 words, "Don't move." And when a man in a small town says, "Don't move," I already know. It has something in there. And it was that same night that I've heard of the name Emily Carter. I've seen it from the outside of the diner, leaning against a vintage car, looking at nothing as if I had a face. She looked like a young man, but with a weariness that does not fit in with the youth. Hair up in any way they can. The jacket is thick, the hands in the pocket, and one look. Have you ever seen someone looking at it as if it was always waiting for the bad news? That was it. I didn't come in soon. I'm the kind that you notice first. She found me in the same way that animals perceive a change in the wind. I said, "Hi, I am of the channel is, I'm making a video of Redwood Falls." She laughed, but it was a laugh without humor, a defense in control. "On to Redwood Falls?" she repeated. "This is the only one in town." I looked at her and talked down to, as if I were offering you a secret. Cities are where the secrets they hide it better. From the look of it, has changed. And then there was the first sentence that really got hung up on. "If you're here because of the bridge, you can't possibly know who's the prick." I asked them the name of it. She hesitated a fraction of a second before saying, "Emily. Only the Emily. No last name." And in this issue was the first in the thread, because I'm telling you this story now with a calm, but at that moment I just felt a chill, and I thought to myself, okay, why is it not said in your last name? I was trying to be gentle and non-invasive. I asked her if she was from the city. She said, "More or less. And if you have an answer that doesn't answer anything, it's more or less." The conversation didn't last long. It cut off early on, as those who have a fear of talking to others. And before you go, though, it left me with a sentence, which, at the time, it seemed to only be a dramatic. But then I realized that it was a real warning. If the sheriff is looking for you, that is different. It's going to leave. I thought that last sentence in his head, as if it were a knife hidden from view. And guess what? The next morning, I got to know him. At the police station, Redwood Falls is a short, one of those who seem to be more of an office than a place for the local police. The flag in front of it, 2 of the cars in the parking lot. The quiet is false. I walked in with a grin on my face. I'm just a content creator. Just relax. The sheriff was there. Sheriff Jack Holloway had such a presence that it doesn't take up space even when it is standing still. The high posture is a straight line, light-colored eyes, with a face that seemed to have learned not to show surprise, and a voice of calm, too. He said to me, "You're the man of the tunnel?" "I've checked out," he said. "The Redwood Falls don't like a lot of people out. I've tried to play with it. The internet doesn't like me, but we do find a way." He smiled with his mouth, "But it's not with your eyes." And then there was the question of the one who gave me the first feeling that I was being investigated for. "What exactly do you want to know about the bridge?" I said, in a neutral. I said I was doing a video on the stories, the places, and when I heard of a fire, the old one. He nodded, as if he were in the keeping of each word and the file is invisible. "Do you have a place to stay?" he asked. I said, "Yes." "Good." He paused. "Then you leave when you're done, okay?" I laughed, thinking it was just a formality. But the truth is that the question was not a question at all. It was an out. And while I was talking to him, I realized that the house was not only a law enforcement officer. It was the kind of person who knows all the secrets of why the whole world is afraid of getting on the wrong side of silence from him. When I got out of the police station, I saw Emily on the other side of the street. She told me she watched, tense, as if trying to pull me away. I went through and I said, "Do you know him?" She said quickly, "I know enough." And then she would let go of something that has made me swallow it dry. "He does not forget them, and he doesn't forgive the lies." And I said, "Lie about what?" She didn't answer, just looked at me as if I had just opened a door that had no backup. And that's when I got the call that I didn't know it. The city had a story, and she was into it. That afternoon I went to the local library. You know that the library's small, with carpet in the former, and the smell of old paper? Redwood Falls, I had one of these, and library. Libraries are the places where all the cities of store that you pretend that you have forgotten about. I ordered it with old newspapers. The librarian looked at me weird when I said that. The old bridge. She brought out a box. I opened it. The fire. The headline of the small table. A few details to it. But I did have a note on the bottom, almost hidden. The investigations related to the case with each other. Each other. I closed the box gently. Because the cover is a common surname in the US. Yes, but at that moment, I was reminded of the look Emily, the hesitation from her, the way in which it did not name. I went back to the diner, and at the end I asked the pro waiter, and this is just the cover. It was him who. He was pale, and I'm not exaggerating. It was clearly visible. He said, "You don't have to speak that name." I pressed on. "Why is that so?" He looked at the pro's side and lowered his voice. "Why? The man's caught up to this very day." And it was then that my stomach froze. Because I caught up to today. Meaning, it's not just a fire, the old one. It was an open wound. I walked out of the diner, and I went to look, Emily. I found it near a shop, rummaging in a box in the trunk of the car. I said, "Emily, Carter?" She froze. Literally. Her hand stopped in the air. The air between us was hard. She turned around slowly and said, "Who said this last?" I told him the truth. And see what happens. In the library. She closed the trunk of the car with the force. And then, for the first time, she let the mask fall off a little bit. "If you can say that again, close to the sheriff's, over." And I said, "Now what?" She came closer to him and spoke, his eyes glistening with fear and anger. Now's my chance to take a breath. And I stood there, frozen, feeling that he had just touched a bare wire. Right now, I want you to tell me one more thing to do, and write in the comment because I read all. If you were in my shoes, you would stop in here. Or do you continue, knowing that you have someone who is trapped and a sheriff's watching you? He says, "I had no idea, or I would, because I choose to have it all." And I did. Over the next 2 days, there had been a pattern that I couldn't ignore it. I was in the market ahead of the car, the sheriff's moving slowly. I stopped in a gas station. A congressman appeared to, by chance. I had to sit up to eat, someone from nothing to sit close by. It was not paranoia, it was such a method. And the worst part is that I don't hate him for it, because he would do everything in their control of the absurd, as if he believed that he was protecting the city from a virus, the virus that was me. Just then, something happened that made me the most uneasy. Emily started to avoid public places, and when I finally got to talk to her, and she looked smaller, as if the city has been tightened on her. She said to me, "It's connecting the dots." I asked him, "What points?" She took a deep breath, and for the first time I took a piece of real life. "In the name of my fathers, in all it's a place in the city, the same inmate, and he does." And she pointed with her chin to the police station in the far, he hates to remember it. I said, "Your father is Michael Carter?" She closed her eyes. A yes is silent. I have been trying to understand it. How can anyone live in a city where the whole world looks at you as if you were going to a crime of walking? And I said, "You've come back to Redwood Falls. Why is that so?" She has a sad smile. "Because there are things in life that you don't let us go." And by the time I would insist on it, she grabbed my arm and whispered, "If I tell you the truth, now, you are going to think I'm making this up. So promise me that you will go to the end of it." I made a promise, and in that moment, I had no idea how much this promise was going to cost me. On the 3rd day, I did something that I shouldn't have done it. An official in the old city, half tired of life, would agree to talk to me in the parking lot, away from the cameras, away from the windows, in the event that it looks like something from the movie. And real life is scary because you know that it's real. He gave me a copy of the old one, a record of the address, and on that piece of paper was a sentence that made my blood go down. "In a sense, Michael's residence, 14 and Willow Lane." I asked, "So what?" He said, "So that the address does not exist anymore." I frenzy on the top of his forehead. He said, "The house has been demolished after a fire. Formally, for safety." And I said, "But what does it matter? He faced me and said, "Why would someone rewrote the story? And every time someone writes a story, it's because in the original version, it's even worse. I've been to where it is supposed to be the Willow Lane. It was an empty land and surrounded with a card from the old private property, in the weeds, a piece of asphalt and broken, and it's a feeling that I was standing on top of something to be killed. I bent down and picked up a piece of wood, charred stuck in the ground. The fire, yes, but why is the hatred of the fast? While I was looking at the profield, my cell phone rang again. A message from an unknown number. Stops. You're not getting it. No name. Without a subscription. And I can't explain it, but I was sure that it wasn't a troll. It was someone on the inside of the story and trying to push me out. And it was on this day that the sheriff did, in the first innings result. I'm looking forward to getting out on the market when I saw it. It was not found by chance. It was, he waited. The sheriff came in my car, as if it were the owner of the car as a whole. He looked at me and my camera in the passenger seat, and he spake, and quiet. You can't dig up the background too much. I have tried to keep the tone light. I'm doing a video. He gave her a half smile. Is that what you guys call it nowadays? In the past they called him in trouble. I asked him, do you know anything about the case, Carter? He was silent for a moment. And I swear, that second one was like a ton. Then he said, I know you enough to know when someone's repeating the past. I swallowed dry. He came up a little bit, and he spoke so low that it seemed to be just to me. You're not the first to think that it is going to tell the truth, and all of those other day. And then he touched the ball in the most dangerous. Who brought you here? I did it. He noticed the hesitation. At the time, the sheriff nodded, as if I had confirmed something he already knew. Be careful who you talk to you. He noted the look of light weight to the next side of the street, where I saw Emily on the inside of the car, and stopped watching it. The way she held onto the steering wheel, I could see that she was trembling. And it was at that moment that I realized Emily was not only afraid of him, she was afraid of what he might do, no need to do anything. Now let me ask you a very direct, because here's why it matters. If you subscribe to the channel right now, not tomorrow, not later now, because of this story has a point at which it all turns on its head. And if you get up in the middle, you're going to get on with the questions, which I was for a week. And I'm not telling you this for you to live with me until the end, okay? Sign up and stay, because that's the next part. This is a time when the city shows in the face that it hides. The next night, and Emily appeared on, where I was staying. She doesn't hit the door, as someone who's normal. She has made music for short and long code, and when I opened it, it came quickly and locked it behind you. You're being watched, she said. I said, yeah, I know. She took a deep breath, like one who decides to drop in on itself to the abyss. So, come with me. I said, you know what? And she said, to the bridge. I will not discuss. We drove in silence, the kind of silence that screams. The sky was dark, with no moon, and the headlights are cutting down on the road, as if we were paving the way to you within a story, is prohibited. When we arrived there, I saw the bridge in the old town. The wood was old, the structure at an angle, marks and burnt in spots that no one fixed it right. As in the city, prefer to remember the scar. Emily has stopped before crossing the street. She said, it was right here. I asked him, what's that? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the tears in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. It was here that my life is over, and it started up again. I felt a shiver go up by the back of his neck. She went on, my father has been imprisoned for the sake of it. Everyone thinks he's setting fire to the bridge to hide what he has done. I asked, and did he do it? Emily, I confronted him and he said a sentence that I removed. He did what he was told to do. I felt my chest tighten. They sent it to, I said. She nodded, and then she pointed to the bridge, where the river was dark. There's something down there that no one talks about. And if you see it, you will understand why I will never say my name. We went down a trail, the mud sticking to the shoe. The air is cold. As well as a feeling of his own nature, he wanted to push the people around you. When we got down there, I vie. A plate of the old metal, and is almost covered by the earth and the leaves and the brand name of the company. Holloway Logging Co. Holloway. The same last name as him. My heart gave a jolt. And she said, "Now, do you understand?" I don't think enough of me to know that I didn't understand most of it. The next day, the sheriff called me into the police station. "Just talk," he said. And I did. Because when a deputy sheriff in a small town, you call it, you do not do you think if you will. You are going to. He received me in his living room. The wall with the old photos. A flag or banner. A frame with the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's a watch that was a tic-tac is too high. Such as the time, there was a constant threat. He placed the paper on the table. It was a copy of the old record that I've had. And he said, "With the calm of one who holds the leash is invisible. You're stubborn. I've been trying to hold the position." He tilted his head to, "What do you want, Emily Carter?" And it was only then that I realized. He said the last of it in a natural soda. I said, "I don't want anything." He smiled without humor. A lie. He leaned his elbows on the table and said, "Have a last name, an address, a record of the old." He repeated, almost the same as the one that I talked to you there in the very beginning, and I felt my stomach drop. "You think I don't notice when someone else starts to repeat the steps from before?" And I said, "You know, Emily, since when?" The house he was looking at me, taking every inch of my face, and then he said, "Since before I come back." And this phrase, this sentence, this is the bomb. Because how do you know someone before I get back? If she was gone. Then he added, "Thinks that it may play a ghost in here, but the ghost leaves a carbon footprint." I walked out of the police station with the assurance that the house was not only to investigate, he was where, as if he wanted to actually explode when he chose to. And now, I want you to listen to, what do you think about it, the sheriff? He wanted a real one. Justice, revenge, or that he was protecting someone else more? Comment in justice, revenge, or savor. I swear to you this answer changes, as you'll see in the end. That night, Emily, I found an unlikely place. A parking lot of the church empty, illuminated by the post broken blinked. Film too much to be safe and secure. She got into my car and said, "He knows." And I said, "What, exactly?" She opened her purse and pulled out an old photo. It was a picture of the family. A man who I understood to be a Michael Carter, smiling, with his hand on the shoulder of a little girl. And on the side, to be a man, young man, holding out a hat. Emily pointed out, "This one is for my dad." She pointed to the next. "And this here is the son of the sheriff." I feel the air is gone. "Why are you on the picture?" I asked. Emily swallowed in a dry place. "Why is the fire started by my father?" She took a deep breath and finally said, "That night someone else was using the bridge for carrying such a thing. Something that doesn't come up anywhere else. My father saw it, and he made the worst choice of, he tried to prevent it." And I said, "Well, the brother to the sheriff?" Emily looked at underneath. "It was in any way involved, and when things go wrong, someone had to pay." My stomach rolls her eyes. "So, your father was slain?" Emily nodded. And then she said a sentence that made my heart beat in his throat. "I came back because of my father's death. And before he dies, he wants me to do such a thing." I asked him, "What's that?" "Emily, I saw it. He wants me to prove to those who started the fire for the truth." And in that moment I thought to myself, "Okay, this is real, but it is not crazy." She went on, "The one who was just on fire." I was confused. She said, "Did you have someone else that has not turned out that the bridge, and no one ever spoke the name? I have a feeling there is ice on the pimple." And when I was going to ask for more, and she let out that sentence, which turned the story upside down. For those who went on that night, he was from the family of Deputy Sheriff. After this discussion, however, things changed in a way that I can't explain it without making you feel in the mood. You know, when you go to a place, and everyone in the world gets quiet for a second. It started to happen to me all the time. I will go to all the tables, stop talking. I was in the street, the curtains, Mexiam. I've asked questions, answers, turning don't know. I said, "I don't remember it, don't move." And then there was the scary part was that it was not a direct threat. It was the worst. It was an attempt to destabilize. One morning I woke up and found my car in with a tire deflated, without any data loss. No hole is visible. Just empty. as if someone had taken the air out slowly with the patience. Just tell me. I can't come to you without you even realizing it. I fixed it, and it went away. But when I got out, I saw a folded paper stuck on the wiper blade. I opened it. He had only one sentence. You don't know who's watching me. I looked around and I felt, in fact, that I was in a baking tray, and it was only then that I noticed one more thing. The house has never had to get my hands dirty. In the city, it was for him. Now you tell me, you think that this kind of threat is worse than someone thinking about and talking about, I'll pick you up? He says, the worst or best. Because of what happened after that, it was a proof of the terror. The more efficient it is, not displayed. Me and Emily went to the prison of the state, near Colorado Springs, Colorado, driving through the silence. She didn't cry. It's not collapsed. It was hard. Like any emotion, it was a door she couldn't open it. When we went in, the one with the smell of disinfectant and the metal gave me a squeeze in his chest. And when it's Michael Carter first appeared on the other side of the glass, and I felt a shock of it all. It looked smaller than I thought it would be. The more the old man, a little more worn out. But her eyes were alive, intelligent, and in the fast lane down to you. He looked at Emily, and his expression changed, as if she were the sun, going to a dark place. Emily picked up the phone. Father, she said. He said, did you bring it? Emily looked at me and broke it down. Michael then spoke directly to me. Do you have a channel, right? Are you fond of telling a story? I said, yes. He smiled. And it was a sad smile, then the right one. And I said, what really happened that night? Michael took a deep breath, as if bearing him to the weight of the 20th anniversary of his chest. They were using the bridge as a runner. It was not for anyone to see. I vie. I asked him, who are they? He looked at Emily. After that, you know. And he said, Holloway, I felt like your stomach dropped again. Michael continued with a hoarse voice, but it's not just him. The house has only inherited the throne. Emily shook up the phone. The one who died that night? She asked. Michael was silent for a long time too. And then he said something that made me feel as if I've been pushed down into the icy water. It was not a he. It was a how. Emily closed her eyes, struggling not to fall down. Michael said, and if you are open to this story, and they are going to try to close, you are with them. When we came out of the jail, and Emily was pale, she looked at me and said, now, do you still want to continue? I just wanted to say, no. But I had come too far to pretend that I didn't see the VI. I said, I do. And that's when the rain started for real. We went back to Redwood Falls and I swear to you, it seemed as though the city had changed its color. The sky was so heavy. The wind was cold. The more people in a hurry. And the house was more quiet for a while. In the film, he has not faced Emily, did not make a scandal, did not arrest anyone. It made it worse. He let the silence of decay. Emily took a day to solve a thing. I stood outside the door, waiting for him. And I saw, through the glass, and when the sheriff looked at her, it was not a look of anger. It was a look of recognition, as if he had snapped the last piece. Later, Emily walked away with his shoulders tensed, as if he had been punched in the invisible. And I said, he's told you anything? She said, don't. I frenzy on the top of his forehead. She went on. He called me by name. I felt like an ice pack. Emily Carter. She nodded. And then she said something that sent shivers up my spine. The way he spoke. It seemed as if he was experimenting on the word, as someone who tests to a gun before you use it. In the days that followed, the atmosphere between them had changed dramatically. The conversations were short and cold, the looks of lasting half a second at most. People would stop to help you, Emily. And Emily realized that I was actually going to explode. She said to me, he's going to wait for the moment when I am most vulnerable. And I said, why not? She said, God does not just want to win. He wants us to do. I'll lose everything. And that night, I woke up to a message on my cell phone. The number is unknown. If you're under the bridge, before he finds you. I sat down on the bed, shivering, because I knew that it was over a video. It was a countdown. I went back to the bridge alone. Yes. Yeah, I know. It looks stupid. But there was something greater for me by pulling out. The feeling of, if I don't go, I'm never going to sleep. For I have come down with the lantern, and I went up to the board of Holloway logging. But this time, I saw something I'd never seen before. Back of the card, half buried, I had a bucket medal, small. How to a mailbox that is comfortable to use. My heart raced. I lifted her over the side, and the inside, she had an envelope in a plastic, with that document, photos, a USB flash drive. My brain screamed, "Get out of here now!" But my hands were shaking opening the envelope. All the pictures were gone. Problems. But I could see the people on the bridge in the evening carrying things. And in one of the photos, I could see a face, for a young man, the brother of the sheriff, and in another shot, of a woman. And guess what? It was not Emily's. She was a woman who seemed to be with me. I was frozen. I was trying to figure out if it was a print, but it's not. The shape of the face, the eyes, the chin line. It's like it's too much. And then I saw a note on the paper. Download. Austin, TX, September 2006. Austin. I was born and raised in Texas. My chest tightened, as well as Austin in 2006. I just felt the world go round. And then there was the feel of the most frightening night. It wasn't just me finding a secret from the town. The city was showing me that I had a place in history, as if I had been brought up. There's something that I didn't even know it was there. And now, I want you to comment on one thing, because I want to gauge whether you're seeing what I'm seeing. You would think that I was attracted to Redwood Falls by any chance? Or do you think that I've chosen? Comments. Accidentally, or the chosen. Because when I hooked it up to this at the end of, I stayed at the days without being able to talk to you about it. I went back to the car with the USB stick in my pocket and a feeling like I was carrying dynamite. And when I turned the key, the headlamps illuminate for someone standing on the road. The house is waiting for me. I had to stop the car. The sheriff didn't move. He just stood there in the middle of the road, as if the night was on him. I walked slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you want? He took 2 steps, and he looked straight at me. And then he said the phrase that it has closed the circle. Did you really think that I was telling the story of Emily? But you came here. I remember you. I felt my whole body freeze. I've tried to deny it, but the truth is, I wasn't sure of anything. The sheriff gestured with his chin up in my pocket. You went to the store. I didn't say anything back. He went on to say, I had hoped you would find, because when you do, you can't pretend you didn't see it. I asked her, his voice failing. Who was that woman in the picture? The sheriff took a deep breath, and when he spoke, I realized that the silence from him was a gun. Because of that, he had to choose the words to be the one who chooses where to cut. She was called Sarah Holloway, and she's my sister. My heart raced. And what does it have to do with me? The sheriff was silent for a moment, and then he let go of the truth as it is if you're playing a weight on the floor. She didn't die that night. I congelate. He went on to say, it ran away. Fear of one another. A secret bigger than she is. I felt her throat close. What secret? The house I looked at. You are. The world was silent. I swear to you that I've stopped to listen to the wind. I can only hear my heart beating. I stammered. It does not make sense. And from there, the sheriff said something that turned the knife. When you were taken away from here when I was a baby, brought up in Texas, created by distance. Because if you stay, you will be living proof of what had happened on that bridge. I felt it in my legs and softened. So, am I? The house does not have to be completed with a word, cute. He only said, you're the reason why Michael Carter, he was locked up. I was out of breath. And in that moment, I understood the whole story in a flash, the fire on the bridge, to the family of Holloway with the brother of his, the fault move onto the top of the cover, and the child was taken out of the place. I will never grow up close to the truth. And she? Emily suddenly appeared from the car, stopping it. She went out, trembling, staring at me. And for him, I know, she whispered. I knew I had something, you know. The sheriff looked at her, and for the first time I saw something that looked like a pain to cross his face. He said, Emily, I found out who you were for a few days. The daughter of the man who bore it was my fault. Emily took a step back, as if the words had physically pushed her. I have looked at levels too, and I found It was not Marshall of Verse's girl. He was a level higher than your losses. I asked her, his voice broken. Then why don't you arrested him? The sheriff said. I wanted to see how far she would go. Emily cried out. My father didn't do it on my own. The sheriff said, a cold, I don't know. And then there was a final surprise that no one was ready to go. The sheriff took it out of his pocket. We wear the old one, the sign of his brother, and put it in my hand. My brother died in the night, he said, is not in the fire now. And then he led her to the truth, and because of that, I helped to bury him. I felt a shock across the chest. He went on to say, I've spent years saying that I was protecting the city. I was protecting my family. Emily sobbed quietly, as if each and every tear would be an understatement. And I said, what do you want from me? The sheriff looked to the dark sky, and he said something that I never thought to hear from him. I want it to end. He pointed to the pro stick. You'll have what you need. I was staring at him, not understanding. And then he added, not to destroy the city, to get free one who was caught in the wrong place. Emily said, my father. The sheriff nodded. And in that moment I realized that the silence between them had turned into a weapon, because the sheriff had been using the silence to punish him, but also in order to survive. I went back to the house that night, and I sat down in front of the computer with the flash drive in her hand, trembling. And I think to myself, if I were to publish it, I change lives. If I do not post, I've become an accomplice. And that's why I'm here right now, talking to you directly. Because sometimes, to tell a story, not just entertainment, it's a choice. And right now, I'm going to ask you for anything, just as strongly as possible. Because if you've read this far, you are a part of this as well. If you subscribe to the channel and now, because I don't tell the story in half, I'm going to give up, and the next movie is going to open the door even more dangerous. Like this video. Because it shows for the platform that it is worth it to deliver the stories that bind and make you think. Shares with someone you love, suspense, and a twist to it. Because I will. You know if you're dying to talk about it with someone else. Comment below is the part of you that you appalled. It was Emily. Was it him? I was discovering that I was a part of it. I want to read the theory. Do I really want to see what do you think will happen? And if you've ever lived in something that is a fact, he was only kept for a year, he says, also without the details to be dangerous, just a feeling, because I know that there are a lot of people, by pressing the silence here and there. And they have a history of showing up on the screen right now. It seems like just one more video, but it's just so stories and the most interesting will begin. Click to watch right now.